My sister asked me for $4,000 to become independent. I helped her for 5 months, but when my car broke down and I couldn't pay for 1 month, she slandered me to my parents, saying I forced her to move out. Years later, she got arrested, and I discovered she was a serial scammer. I'm 29 years old. I work in digital marketing, and honestly, I need to get this story off my chest, because what happened with my sister, Mallory, basically destroyed my relationship with my parents and made me realize that sometimes family can be your worst enemy. I guess I should start from the beginning, or like how our family was before all this exploded. Mallory is 24 years old. She's 5 years younger than me, and always, and when I say always, I mean always, was my parents' favorite. My mom, Deborah, and my dad, Martin, basically treated her like she was made of glass, you know, like anything could break her. I was the responsible son, the one who got good grades, the one who got a job as soon as he graduated college, the one who never caused problems. Mallory was the complete opposite, but somehow that made her more special to them. You know what I mean? Like she needed more attention, more care, more of everything. Looking back, I should have seen it coming, but when you're the responsible older brother, you convince yourself that you're helping, not that you're being used. The whole thing started like a year and a half ago. Mallory was still living with my parents. She hadn't finished college because she dropped out like 3 times and basically spent the day in her room or going out with friends. My parents let her live there without paying anything, without doing anything, literally nothing. One day she called me crying, saying she needed to talk to me urgently. I went to a coffee shop near my parents' house, and when I got there, she was a mess, with red eyes, like really devastated. She told me she couldn't stand living with our parents anymore, that they were super controlling, that they were driving her crazy, that she needed her own space to be able to focus and find a job and basically fix her life. And I believed her. I mean, my parents are pretty intense. They always have been, so it didn't sound that far-fetched. She asked me if I could help her move out, just for a few months until she got a job. She told me she'd already found a perfect apartment, that it cost like $850 a month, and that she only needed help with the first month, the deposit, and some basic furniture. She promised that in 2 or 3 months max, she'd already be working and could pay for everything herself. The truth is, at that time I was making good money. I had savings, and I thought it was a good investment to help my sister become independent. My parents had always told me to take care of her, that it was my responsibility as the older brother, all those typical Latino family things, you know. So I ended up paying her first month's rent, the $850 for the deposit, and I spent like $2,000 more on furniture. We went together to IKEA, bought a bed, a sofa, a table, dishes, pots, basically everything she needed to live. I also gave her like $300 extra for food and personal things. While she found a job, in total, I spent almost $4,000, which isn't chump change, but I thought I was doing the right thing. The day I helped her move, she was super excited. She hugged me, told me I was the best brother in the world, that she was going to pay me back as soon as she could. My parents didn't even know I'd helped her, because Mallory told them a friend had lent her the money, which was already weird, but I didn't pay attention to it at the time. The first 2 months, everything seemed fine. Mallory would text me, thanking me, telling me she was looking for work, that she'd had a couple of interviews. I'd visit her from time to time, and the apartment looked good. She looked happy. But then the excuses started. That companies weren't responding to her, that she needed a car to be able to work but didn't have money to buy one, that the job market was terrible. I suggested restaurant or store jobs, things that didn't require a car or experience, but she always had a reason not to apply, that those jobs didn't pay well, that she'd studied graphic design, she never finished that degree, and deserved something better, basically pure excuses. What I did notice was that she was always going out with friends. I'd see her on Instagram at restaurants, at bars, at the movies. When I'd ask her how she had money to go out, if she wasn't working, she'd tell me her friends invited her, or that she used coupons, or I don't know what. I kinda suspected something, but I also didn't want to be the controlling brother, you know? Like, she was already an adult, supposedly. The 3rd month I paid her rent again. The 4th too. The 5th month my car broke down. I needed like $1,800 in repairs, and I didn't have enough to fix it and pay Mallory's rent at the same time. I called her like 2 weeks before her rent was due and explained the situation. I told her, "Look, this month I won't be able to pay you because my car broke down and I need to fix it to be able to go to work. But I promise, next month I'll help you. Again, if you still need it." I thought she'd understand. That after 5 months of support, she could handle 1 month alone, or, I don't know, ask my parents for help or look for a temporary job. But no, man. No. She went crazy. She started yelling at me on the phone, saying how could I abandon her like that she depended on me, that I'd promised to help her until she got settled. I tried to reason with her, but she didn't want to listen. She hung up on me and then blocked me everywhere. Instagram, WhatsApp, texts, calls, everything. Like 2 weeks went by without knowing anything about her. Which was super weird because normally my parents were the first to call me to ask about her. One day, like at 10 at night, my mom calls me hysterical, literally screaming, crying, saying how could I have done that to my sister, that I was a monster, that she didn't raise me like that. I didn't understand anything. I asked her what she was talking about, and she said Mallory had told them everything, that I'd forced her to move out, that I'd promised to pay for everything and then abandoned her without warning, that now she was going to be evicted and had nowhere to live. I couldn't believe it. I explained to my mom exactly what had happened, that Mallory had begged me to help her, that I'd paid for everything voluntarily for 5 months, that I only needed 1 month's pause because my car had broken down. But my mom didn't believe me. She kept yelling that I was selfish, that how could I think about a car when my sister was going to be on the street. My dad got on the phone and it was worse. He told me I was a disgrace as a son and as a brother, that Mallory had told them how I pressured her to move out, promising I'd support her, and now I was leaving her stranded. I told them that was a lie, that I had proof of everything. But my dad just said he didn't want to hear my excuses and hung up on me. I tried to call Mallory like 1,000 times, but I was still blocked. I went to her apartment and she didn't open the door, even though I knew she was inside because I could hear music. I sent her messages from a friend's number begging her to talk, to clear everything up, but nothing. Like a week later, my parents called me again to say they were going to have a family meeting to resolve this once and for all. I agreed, because I thought I could finally explain my version with proof and everything would be cleared up. The meeting was at my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon. I arrived with all my bank receipts printed out, text messages with Mallory, where she asked me for help, photos from the day we went to buy furniture, basically everything that proved I'd helped Mallory voluntarily and that she knew perfectly well that month I couldn't pay her because my car had broken down. Mallory arrived late, like half an hour late, with a victim face you can't imagine. She sat next to my parents and didn't even look at me. I started explaining everything from the beginning. I pulled out the receipts showing the initial $4,000, the monthly rent payments, everything. I showed them the messages where Mallory begged me for help, where she told me she only needed a few months, but every time I showed something, Mallory had an explanation. That I'd manipulated her to move out because I wanted to look like the hero brother, that she never asked for all those expensive furniture and I insisted on buying them, that I'd explicitly promised her I'd support her until she had a stable job, no matter how long it took. All lies. But my parents believed every word. My mom even said I'd always been jealous of Mallory, that I couldn't stand that she was more sociable and loved than me. My dad added that since I was a kid, I'd been cold and calculating, that I'd probably planned all this to make Mallory look bad. I was sitting there with my mouth open, literally unable to believe what I was hearing. I asked them if they really thought that I, their son, who'd never given them problems, who'd always been responsible, would spend $4,000 just to make my sister look bad. My dad told me people do strange things for attention and that clearly I had issues I needed to work out. Mallory started crying, saying she just wanted peace. My parents comforted her while looking at me like I was trash. I got up, told them it was the last time I'd try to reason with them, that when they realized who Mallory really was, it would be too late. I left that house swearing I wouldn't talk to them again until they apologized. Like a month went by. I was still super angry, but also sad, because at the end of the day, they were my parents and my sister. One day, an unknown number calls me, and when I answered, it was Mallory's apartment landlord. He asked me if I was Ethan, the brother, and I said yes. He explained that Mallory had abandoned the apartment 2 weeks ago without notice, that she'd taken several pieces of furniture that technically were part of the place's inventory, and that she'd left damages totaling almost $1,500. He asked me if I knew where she was, because he needed to collect for those damages. I told him I had no idea, that I hadn't talked to her in weeks. That same afternoon, my cousin Kara, who's like my best friend in the family, sent me some screenshots from Mallory's Instagram. Turns out Mallory had made her profile private, but Kara was following her from before. The photos showed Mallory in Miami, at a hotel that looked super expensive, with new designer clothes, cocktails on the beach, everything super luxurious. The photos were from the last 2 weeks. Exactly when, supposedly, she had no money and was about to be on the street. Kara told me there were more photos from recent months, trips to New York, expensive dinners, shopping at designer stores. Where the hell had she gotten that money? I sent the screenshots to my parents with a message that said, "Please explain this to me." My mom responded like the next day, saying surely a friend had invited her, to stop harassing her, that I'd already done enough damage. They didn't respond anything else after that. But things got more interesting. Turns out Mallory's ex-boyfriend, a guy named Trent, who I'd known for years, wrote to me on Facebook. He asked me if it was true that Mallory had done the same thing to me that she did to him. I asked him what he meant, and he told me a whole story. According to Trent, he and Mallory had dated like 3 years ago. Mallory had told him our parents were abusive, that they mistreated her, that she needed to escape urgently. Trent paid for an apartment for her for 6 months, bought her a used car, gave her money for food and expenses. Mallory promised him she'd get a job and pay him back for everything. But she never worked, always had excuses. And when Trent finally told her he couldn't keep supporting her, she accused him to our parents of having manipulated and mistreated her. My parents believed her, and almost sued Trent. He had to show them proof that it was all a lie, but even then, my parents said Mallory had been a victim of an older man. Trent was 26, and Mallory was 21 at the time. I mean, it wasn't some crazy age difference. Trent told me the best thing he did was get away from our whole family, and that I should do the same. Things kept coming to light. An old roommate of Mallory's, Claire, contacted me after Kara told her what was happening. Claire told me she'd lived with Mallory for 3 months 2 years ago, and that Mallory had borrowed $800 from her for a family emergency that never existed. When Claire asked for the money back, Mallory blocked her and moved out without telling her. Claire never got her money back. Another friend of Mallory's wrote to me saying Mallory owed her money from a trip they'd taken, together, and that Mallory never paid her share. Apparently, there were like 5 different people Mallory owed money to. I started investigating more, like I basically became a detective of my own sister. I discovered Mallory was involved with a girl named Sophia, who sold I don't know what products on social media, something that sounded super shady, possibly a pyramid scheme or online scams. I found photos of Mallory at events for this group, all dressed super elegant, talking about financial freedom and entrepreneurship. Remember Mallory supposedly had no money or job? Well, turns out she did have money, quite a bit apparently, just not from legitimate or ethical sources. Like 2 more months went by without contact with my family. I'd already accepted they'd probably never believe me, and I was better off without them. I'd even started therapy because all this had affected me more than I wanted to admit. One night, like 11 at night, Mallory calls me. Out of nowhere. Like nothing had happened. She tells me, "Hey little brother, how are you?" in a super casual voice. I stayed quiet for a few seconds because I couldn't believe the nerve. I asked her what she wanted and she said nothing, that she just wanted to see how I was. That family is important and we shouldn't fight over misunderstandings. I told her they weren't misunderstandings, that she'd deliberately lied to make me look bad with our parents. Mallory laughed, literally laughed, and told me I was exaggerating, that she never said anything bad about me, that if our parents drew their own conclusions, that wasn't her fault. I asked her about the money she owed all those people, about the trips, about everything. She told me I had no right to judge her life. that how she got her money was her problem. I told her it was my problem when she used my money and my reputation. She got angry and told me I'd always been bitter. That's why our parents preferred her over me and hung up on me. Like a week later, I'm not kidding, my mom calls me crying again. But this time it was different. She told me Mallory had been arrested. At first I thought it was another manipulation so I'd feel sorry, but my mom was really devastated. Turns out Mallory and her friend Sophia had been scamming people through those weird internet businesses. They'd promised digital marketing services they never delivered. They'd sold counterfeit products. Basically, they'd stolen thousands of dollars from dozens of people. One of the victims had sued her, and when the police investigated, they found a whole pattern of fraud. My mom asked me if I could help pay Mallory's bail, which was $5,000. I told them, no, absolutely not. That Mallory needed to face the consequences of her actions for the first time in her life. I told her maybe that was exactly what she needed. My dad got on the phone and told me that if I didn't help Mallory, he'd cut me off from the family forever. I told him, go ahead. That anyway, they'd already cut me off when they believed all her lies. My parents ended up selling their car to pay Mallory's bail. As far as I know, Mallory is waiting for trial. She's probably going to have to do community service or pay restitution or something. My parents still haven't apologized to me, and honestly, I don't expect them to anymore. Mallory tried to call me one more time from a friend's number, but I didn't answer. My cousin Kara keeps me informed about what's happening with them, and apparently my parents are finally starting to see who Mallory really is, but it's too late now. Last week I was having coffee in my apartment, watching a movie, and I realized that for the first time in months, I felt at peace. I didn't have to worry about Mallory's dramas. I didn't have to deal with my parents blaming me for everything. I didn't have to carry the weight of being the responsible brother who fixes everything. And, yeah, it hurts that my family basically chose me as the villain when I was only trying to help, but it also freed me from something I didn't know was drowning me. I guess sometimes the best decision is to walk away, even if it's family, even if it hurts, even if part of you always hopes things will change. But it's not my problem anymore. It's not my responsibility anymore. And that's enough for now.